Hi, I'm Dave Miller. I'm the Director of College Counseling at Stevenson School in Pebble Beach, California. And I'd like to welcome you to, I think, the segment of our second year of a program we call College Prep for You. This is designed as sort of an outreach program, and it's designed to teach both students and parents in the Monterey Bay and the South County area all about this interesting process of applying to college and gaining admission. In prior programs, we've talked about, we've given a broad overview of the year, what it's like for the junior year and the senior year. We've had a panel of parents at our chapel with 4 or 5 admissions people and students asking questions. We've spent a session on financial aid. We've talked about the interview and getting recommendations. We've talked about choosing colleges, getting organized, doing the application process itself. And in today's program, we're gonna stay on track here. Throughout the year, we've been chronologically sound and consistent with where our real students are in time. And so we've been focusing on the juniors through this spring because they're starting to get into the thicket of applying to schools, learning about schools, visiting colleges, and learning the ins and outs. We're going to jump back and spend some time with the seniors today because this week is the last week that seniors will be finding out about their decisions that they've worked for a year and a half. And today and tomorrow are going to be the last decisions, April 1st, where some of the eastern schools, some of the more selective schools will finally tell students where they've been admitted. Throughout the year, students have been learning in a rolling admissions process. Some schools let the kids know early. Some kids have known in the last couple of months, but tomorrow will be the final day. Everybody will know. So we're going to talk about what do I do now that I've got this information. So we're going to focus on acceptances, denials, wait lists, appeal processes, and then we're going to talk about in the second half of the program a thing called the gap year, an idea we've borrowed from the British overseas, and it's becoming more and more popular here with us. So 2 big things. What do I do now? And then possibly down the future, what are some things I can do to affect and change my future? We have, as in past shows, we have 2 guests joining us today, 2 students at Stevenson, 2 seniors. Both have chosen to do some interesting things with their lives. So before we start with our PowerPoint and our further conversation and discussion, let's meet our guests. And we'll start with the beauty before the beast here, Michael. I hope you're not offended by that. We have Genevieve Meadow-Jenkins with us, and tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a senior at Stevenson. I came as a new junior, and I decided that I wanted to do a gap year this coming year, and in school I'm really interested in English and in classics, and I don't know.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of the students I brought on, I don't bring typical students on this show, and I probably should apologize for that. She's a special student, a little different, certainly bright, and probably takes school a little more seriously than many students do. She sort of owns this process and has gone from York School to Stevenson School. So she's really thinking about what's important to her, and she applied to some really interesting places. So I think the life of the mind and ideas are probably pretty important to you. Yeah. And you're going to probably think about majoring in English, maybe, writing?
I don't know. I'm really interested in classics, so I might be a classics major or try to tie that in with creative writing or English in some way. Okay, good. And so you've seen 2 good schools. You're with York and Stevenson, and you've applied to a variety of schools that just fit you, right? What are some of the schools you've considered? I applied to Sarah Lawrence, NYU, Reed, and Wesleyan, and so far I've gotten into Sarah Lawrence and Reed.
Okay, so you've been accepted by some, been rejected by some?
I got rejected by Wesleyan.
Okay, how about wait list at all?
I haven't been waitlisted.
So you have basically those 2 choices, and then the third choice of the gap year. Tell us a bit about what you do outside of the class. What are some of the things you're interested in? I'm
really interested in student leadership, especially at Stevenson. I participate in the prefectship, which is a on-campus boarding leadership activity. And I do this program called Community Forum where I teach a freshman class, and I also participate in the dance committee, planning dances and stuff. But yeah, I'm interested in that.
How big a part do you think those things have played in your acceptance in college?
I don't know. I think they like to know that I'm really interested in being a part of my school and supporting the other students in doing well and supporting myself and bettering the programs. But yeah, I think that's a big deal.
I think one of the things that we teach, and we've shown in this series of programs, both last year and this year, is that American schools, whether they're public or private, more so private and more so selective, look at you as an academic person. They also look at you on the outside, your personality, things that you do, and those things go together. Academics obviously are a little bit more important. So we'll leave you a second and put the ball in your court, Michael. Spencer Smith is from London, and he's visiting us for a year as an exchange student in a special program.
5 months, actually.
That's right, 5 months. The ESU program, English Speaking Union, and a little different over there in that program. First of all, let's start and find out about you. Tell us a few things about yourself, Michael.
Well, I've already the equivalent of graduated from my school in London.
You do 13 years there as opposed to our 12.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. And so I finished with all my grades and exams and my school life, and most of my friends have gone off to university or have gone off on their travels around the world. And I have found myself joining Stevenson School as part of this English Speaking Union.
So your private school then was
scholarship.
part of the ESU program then?
Well, no, actually I applied to the English Speaking Union independently.
Okay.
My school hasn't actually had any history of taking part
All right.
in these exchanges before. So I made an application, and once they had accepted me, I had given them a list of schools that I was interested in joining in the States, and Stevenson was one of them, and
Okay.
they assigned me
Good.
Stevenson.
And so you've had a little different experience both with the college. You're into college already, and you've gone through that whole process. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I want to use you as well as Genevieve to sort of comment on the things we're going to talk about today, and use you as a sounding board and get your reactions, especially since you're from overseas and your system is a little bit different than ours. We want to find out a little bit about your system as well. I'm guessing your system for getting into college is a little bit easier than ours, what you've learned about ours. Different, maybe not easier.
Yeah, different, I'm sure.
Yeah.
As far as I know, it's more of an independent application here, whereas in England it's all done through a kind of universal application board called UCAS.
UCAS, exactly. So in that way, it's very similar to our University of California system, where you apply to the system but list the schools you want. That's a little similarity. Otherwise, we apply just right to the school. So you've gone through that process, and you're a good student. You've gotten good grades and good standardized tests. How much of a role does it play in England for you to be a well-rounded person, for you to show leadership in sports and drama and music, those sorts of things?
I think people will always encourage you to try and demonstrate as much of a well-rounded character as possible when you're applying to university, and they'll tell you, try and get as much else into your application apart, other than the basic grades and everything that you take for granted as part of an application
You're doing the
process.
essays, and you have letters of recommendation, and
Yeah.
you're sort of gravitating together, our system and your system. I traveled in the UK several summers ago as a guest of the British Cultural Group, and I learned a lot about schools there, and I was sort of interested to see how you were becoming a little bit more like us in terms of both the college setting and also the college processes. Like I know in Scotland, in some of the honors programs and master's programs, it's a 4-year degree, where traditionally it's been a 3-year degree most of the time, and ours is 4. But then you have the 13th year that makes up the difference.
Well, I mean, I'm going to be studying French, and that's a 4-year degree
4-year
course.
thing.
The third year is an entire year in the
Is
country.
abroad,
Yeah,
yeah.
abroad.
Well, okay, we're going to come back to you and find out some things from both of you, and anytime you want to sort of jump in and comment on some things and maybe explain or raise an issue, I want to invite you to do that. Let's get started with the first half of our program. We're going to talk about what do we do now? What's next? 2 parts, the final decisions, and we'll spend about half the program on that, and then the second part on the gap year. And of course, the gap year is part of the final decisions. Okay, you basically have 3 or 4 decisions. You're accepted, you are deferred. That means you don't know yet, and everybody's going to find out either today or tomorrow what their deferral was. Some kids are put on a wait list, and in some cases, the UC system, they can appeal, and then finally, you're just flat out denied, and there's not much you can do about that. Okay, in terms of final decisions, when do you learn about a final decision? Some people knew in September, immediately. There are some Cal States, there are a lot of rolling application schools, Arizona, Boulder, Oregon. They'll let you know pretty quickly. All the way from September through right now, a variety of these big schools. March is when most private schools let us know, the UCs, the Catholic schools, LMU, USC, a lot of the Eastern schools. And then April 1st, tomorrow, April Fool's, sort of the cruel joke. You know, April is the cruelest month, isn't it? The Ivies, the NESCAC schools, those are the highfalutin Eastern schools that are very, very difficult to gain entrance to. How are you going to find out? In fact, how did you find out, John Biaf?
I found out by email initially from Reed, and then I also found out just by getting my letter from Sarah Lawrence.
The snail mail.
Yeah, snail
the good
mail.
old-fashioned way.
It was nice.
Basically, it's going to be mail or email. You have a PIN number. Sometimes you get a phone call at home, but not too much. Every once in a while, you get that magical call from a professor that's really interested in you, and they do it sort of as a recruiting thing. Okay, in terms of acceptances, this is our advice. This is what we tell people, the sophomores to do, or the seniors to do. Narrow down, if you're lucky enough to get into 3 or more, look at your 3 schools, make some decisions, revisit your reasons for picking those schools and selecting those schools. Sit down very rationally with listing your pros and cons, and then if you can, visit the 3 schools. And my personal piece of advice is set it up so if you have a favorite school, visit that school last, because that's what's going to stick in your memory, and it's sort of setting yourself up for a little success there. Now, have you done some of those things?
I visited Reed a couple weeks ago and stayed overnight there and had a really great time. I enjoyed it all. I didn't know at that point, though, that I had gotten in or that they were...
And if you live in London, so your place is in London, so it's pretty easy for you to visit it.
Yeah.
Did you visit all the schools that you'd thought about?
Pretty much, yes. And, well, you might say that whilst I live in London, I could just stay at home.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be fairly certain that I'll stay in halls of residence.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
A couple other thoughts I have here in terms of acceptance. An overnight visit is perfect and ideal if you can do it. Ideally attend a class, although I remember where I attended a class and I was pretty intimidated at one school that I visited. Sometimes if you're concerned with finances, you want to negotiate with each school to see what sort of awards you can manipulate here and change. And then it's absolutely important that you contact the admission personnel to let them know what your thoughts are. And it's not a bad time to start looking at the course catalog to really help you decide what classes you're going to take and what your real experience is going to be like. If you're unsure, you can talk to other people, family member, friends, alumni that are going there, your own counselor, other people who have been accepted, if there are several at your school. But the bottom line is you're probably going to have a visceral decision. Make a gut, just follow your gut, and you just sort of feel and see yourself at a certain campus. And I think that's probably not a bad way to go. Did you get that reaction? You sort of felt like Reed was your place?
I felt really at home there when I went.
Yeah. That's pretty typical. And then May 1st, you got 1 month from tomorrow to make your decision. And then you've got to do some specific things. Most people are at least $100, sometimes $400. Every once in a while I hear $500. But you got to write them a check. It's good conscience money, so they can make their decisions. And this is a big no-no. No double depositing. Like, you can't send money to Reed and also to Sarah Lawrence, because what that does is it takes away a place from somebody else. And I presume you have a similar thing. You have to put some money on the line over in England.
Well, by a certain time, because it's all done through one standard. It's not really possible to be accepted, to play 2 at the same time.
It seems like you've got it worked out over there. Obviously, there's a bunch of paperwork that you've got to fill out, and this is something that's personal that I always suggest and try to browbeat kids into doing, is sending thank you notes to all the people that have affected you. Could be your first grade teacher, maybe your Sunday school teacher, Cub Scout or Boy Scout leader, I don't know, a coach, certainly your parents. Then you want to get on with your life, maybe contact your future roommates, see who's going to bring the stereo, who's going to bring the TV, do you smoke or not, all those sorts of things. And voila, all of a sudden you're done. You got all those. So it's easy if you're accepted. You just follow those things and you're in good shape. And I'm sure that's, you spend more time, getting ready than actually you do enjoying. But now's the time to, to celebrate and have a party with your friends, and it's a good deal. You're in a good shape. Now the warning, little caveat to this is you can lose your position, and I got a couple stories. The UC system every year at each campus they rescind about 40 to 50 acceptances. Berkeley, Riverside, all of them, and it's usually when they find out there's an irregularity in the acceptance. Somebody falsified some information, the transcript doesn't check out, somebody lied about some aspect, somebody does something dishonorable, and they lose that position. The private schools do that. In fact, every school does it. In fact, I remember one August I was talking to a Stanford admissions person about one of our recruits, and she was telling me that she was doing something very sad day for her. And I said, well, what's the problem? She said, well, I have to write a letter to this young lady who is a wonderful student. She was #1 in her class. She was a cheerleader. She had great board scores, SATs. Everything was fine, except they found out that she took off the last quarter of her senior years and got 4 Ds and an F, and she's going to Stanford. Well, they rescinded her application, her admission, so she didn't get to go to Stanford. Just last year, one of our students called me up in August and he said, Mr. Miller, can you help me out? And I said, what's the problem? He said, well, UCLA is not going to let me come. He said, I have to go to Santa Monica Junior College or someplace. And I said, what happened? He said, well, they didn't like my last transcript. I said, what happened? He said, well, I had 3 Ds and a couple of, I said, well, we warned you about that. So they do that, not too often, but you've got to be wary about, keeping out of hot water. Okay, another piece of advice is we talk to our students and everybody about this issue of sensitivity. You may have gotten in, like you're certainly happy about Reed and your choices you're going to have, and you're happy about you. But just think about the students who didn't get into the places they wanted to. We have to be a little sensitive to them about how we talk, how we celebrate, and just being concerned about their feelings. Okay, the second big issue is a deferred admission. This is interesting in this country. I'm not sure if you have that in England, but we will have a number of schools like USC and Middlebury and some other ones. You'll be accepted, but you have to come during the winter term. There are some schools that will accept you for the spring term. Brandeis does that in New England. Cal Berkeley does it. Cal Poly is one that will let you come during the summer term. I just recently realized one of our students got into American University, but she's deferred also. So there's a variety of schools that let you in, but not during the fall. And people feel pretty bad about that, but let me explain why. Why would they have 2 different admissions times? Well, it's basically for efficiency and for money. They accept you because they want you. They need you. You're the type of person they want. But the problem is they don't have quite enough room for you, and they put in priority order the people that they want to accept. So they maybe didn't want you, but they want Michael. So Michael will go on this. You're accepted, but you can't come until the winter. And what it does, it makes up for a normal summertime melt. Kids decide that they really don't want to go there, so that leaves an open space. And then we've got that bed allotment, and we've got to fill them. So there's that reason. There's also some schools will have kids away on their year abroad or term abroad, and they have that bed open, and then that bed will close a little bit later. A couple other reasons, you could probably investigate a variety of different reasons, but some schools are used to it and they like it. Now, the consequences, you think that's a bad thing? What ends up really being a good thing, because the students who do take advantage of that always, and this is straight from the college, they become the best students. They love their school. It's probably because of the second chance they're getting. They become loyal alumni. They give lots of money, and they're the campus leaders. It's like, I've got a new life, a second breath, and so they really love the place they've come to. And we found that out with our students. Okay, so what do you need to know about the wait list? This is the third group. We had the acceptances, we had the deferred, now the wait list. There's a lot of kids on the wait list. We'll give you a lot of facts about the wait list. Why do they have a wait list? One, because they don't know who's going to come. It's really uncertain. A lot of people apply. A lot of people are applying 20, 30 places, and you can't rely on, even with an acceptance, who's going to come. So they've got to take some educated guesses. So lots of applications. The uncertainty of admissions, a really souring economy, which is having finances dictate too much about what people are going to do. They maybe don't go to their first choice because of the money situation. And then the baby boomlet generation, which you guys are part of. I'm a baby boomer, and our children are baby boomlets, and so there's lots of me, a lot of our group, and lots of you. So there's lots of people chasing a few spots, and that results in this wait list. And then another thing that changes in the early programs. Schools like Harvard and Princeton have gone totally away from early decisions, and so if you get in there, they don't know if people are going to go or not. So that has ramifications for other schools. So all these dynamics have an impact on the wait list. So if you're on the wait list, what should I do? I've had kids coming in, we're in the thick of that this week, and if kids come in and ask me every day, this is my situation, I want to go to Santa Clara, what should I do? Well, I'm going to have a workshop on this Thursday for our seniors, but I also have some things printed out and some specific things you need to know about the wait list. First of all, you got to keep your hopes in check. Like, very slim chances that you're going to come off the wait list and get in there. So it's sort of a dicey game, and you have to keep under control. Be very methodical about it. Go in and see your counselor, talk to people. Obviously, you need to return their postcard. They'll have a form or a letter saying if you want to be on the wait list, you got to fill that out and send it in. You don't send money because you're not accepted, and you don't need to make that sort of commitment. There'll be plenty of time for that later. And you have to follow their instructions and know their system. Like today, I found out one student told me that Santa Clara didn't want a transcript, so we took that off our list. So everybody's a little bit different. You have to do exactly what they want for their wait list expectations. A lot of specific things that you need to be aware of. Okay, some of the things you can do to be proactive is gather new letters of support, somebody that hasn't talked about you before, uncover some new things, secure a brand new fresh transcript because you have new grades on it, especially us because we're in a quarter system. You need to stay in touch with the school. Don't be a nag or don't be too much in their face, but continue to talk to them and let them know that you want to be part of them. It's a good idea to know the regional admissions officer. And on our last show, I had the lady from Santa Clara named Maricel Rubio, and she would be a good person to talk to because she's making those decisions for the Santa Clara folks. There again, don't nag, don't be a hound. And then especially you don't want to have your counselor or your teacher or your mom talk for you. You got to speak for yourself. You've done a really good job with that throughout this whole process. Sort of bypassed everybody, and that's why she's at a place like Geneviève's at a place like Reed, because they really value that sense of independence. Now you're not going to have to go through this waitlist business because you get the places you want, and big pain that you've avoided doing this. Now, do they have anything like that in England?
They have a kind of pooling system, but I think similarly it's not used.
Yeah, not as big a deal. Yeah, it's becoming more and more a big deal for us. Okay, the odds of acceptance, and I just learned this the other day, nationally it's about a 30% chance of getting in off the wait list. It seems like that's pretty good, but for elite schools, the really tough schools, it's down to about 14%, which are not very good odds. A lot of sort of miscellaneous things to keep in mind. You've got to take an educated guess to determine your chance of acceptance. You just don't go off half-cocked. Be very rational about it, make a plan, and know what you're about. Also, it's a good thing to know that waitlist students are ranked. Like, depending what the school is, they're going to rank people according to who they need. For example, if on the softball team they were recruiting this pitcher and the pitcher decides not to come, then they need that pitcher. So they're going to go to the wait list and they're going to search out for a pitcher. If an oboe player in the orchestra didn't show up, or somebody graduates, they're going to go to that wait list and pick out institutional needs, people that they need to form a community. Let me give you 3 examples of schools that I found over the years that have got sort of interesting responses to the wait list. For years and years and years, Princeton University did not have a wait list because they got the right number of people, they took an adequate guess, and 75% of the people who get in go. So they just figured 25% more, and that 75 will show up and then we're fine. Recently, they've gone to the wait list because of their change in policy. Washington University, we've got 3 or 4 kids that got in there this year. They're pretty tough to get into. They don't deny anybody. There's no denial letters. They either accept you or they put you on the wait list. So nobody feels bad, oh, I didn't get rejected. But they do it for a very obvious reason. They want to encourage kids next year to apply, because the worst thing that can happen to me is I get on a wait list. So I feel pretty good about that. Nobody gets rejection. Very psychological a game they're playing there, and I think it's disingenuous, and I don't like Washington University for that reason, but they pioneered that and they do it, and that's their signature. And then the UC system, they don't have a wait list, but they do have an appeal process, which nobody else has. So it's sort of their covert way to have a little wait list. Okay, the wait list can have ramifications for money, and the way this works is, in the past, well, a lot of schools still do that. They will accept most of the class and then dole out the money that they have. And then when they go to the wait list, the money is all used up. And so they might accept you off the wait list. And if you can't pay for it all yourself, it's like you're rejected because you can't get enough money to go there. And that's a particular American problem. I know you're funded a little bit differently in the UK, a little bit easier for you over there. But that has ramifications for our students, especially our students in the middle class and lower classes. So it has some classism and some elitism, attached to it that, is a little unsavory. Other things you might be aware of, you can get off this wait list as late as September. Like, I've heard stories of people in class in September, and they get a knock on the door, they're getting ready to go to class, or they're even on their way to a lecture, and they get the letter saying, hey, we came off the wait list to USC, do you want to come? those people bug out or they go to USA, they transfer, because this pecking order what they perceive to be the best school for them. I'm not sure that's a really good thing, but it seems sort of strange to me. Would you do something like that?
I don't.
Like Reed, you don't get into Reed and you go to Sarah Lawrence, but then later Reed tells you you can come. Would you go?
I don't know. I think I'd probably stay at Sarah Lawrence. Well, they have an exchange with Reed where
Yeah.
I could go there for a year, so
Yeah.
I don't think I would choose that. But I don't understand how would that work financially? Would you just not?
Well, it depends. If the school has lots of money, like Harvard, Yale, Princeton get a lot of money, there's no problem. But schools that don't have enough money, you're sort of on your own. So that plays to a wealthier class of people. Interesting concept. Okay, another thing that you absolutely need to do is make sure you do all the paperwork and let people know. Send them to the admissions and ask the questions. Okay, recent waitlist acceptances. These are the numbers, and this was the last 2 years. Of course, we don't have this year's numbers yet. Madison, they took nobody 2 years ago. This last year, they took 600 people off the waitlist. That's a bunch. This is North Carolina, Boston College, Northwestern. You can see those are big numbers. If you're bringing in a class of about 1,500 and you go 206 on the waitlist, that's pretty big. Harvard, 200. They never used to have to do that, but now they're doing it. Other colleges, Princeton, Georgetown, Yale, Dartmouth. Now you can see Dartmouth has sort of gone down. 797, that's huge. And I remember 5 or 6 years ago, they didn't take anybody off the wait list for years, and then they went to that number. So things are sort of goofy, aren't they? Just this past year, Cornell, Chicago, Swarthmore, these are all very highly selective places, Caltech, and so forth. Okay, and the last couple here, Cornell, Grinnell in Iowa, Haverford, Penn State, look at that, 1,356 students. And this number, the percentage on the right, let me explain that. That's the percentage of acceptance. Okay, so like 14% of the people got off, 6%, 3%, and then 80% for Penn State. That's huge. It's like you're getting in if you're on the wait list at Penn State. A little smaller at Skidmore, and then Michigan is reasonable. Okay, there's a domino effect, okay, and this is how it works. This is typical. If Stanford takes you off the wait list, you're going to go to Stanford. That means that affects USC. Okay, so somebody leaves USC to go to Stanford. Now, if there's a USC spot open, somebody from Pepperdine is going to go there. That leaves a spot open at Pepperdine, and that leaves then a spot at LMU, and then you could go on down the line, Redlands, USF, and so it's a musical chairs thing. And it just happens every year. It's part of what they call the summer melt. Sort of an interesting game. Okay, this domino effect. Your letter, things that you could put in your letter to come off the wait list and to help yourself. Okay, first of all, you should talk about why you really want to go there, express your real feelings, why you're a good match, and that'd be easy for you to do at Reed and Sarah Lawrence, because you've got a real claim for matching those type of schools. And then cite your inside knowledge. Like if you had to prove to, say, Sarah Lawrence why that's a good place for you, what would you put in your letter?
I'd probably say that I'd bring up their motto, which is "You're different, so are we," or "We're different,
Something
so
like
are
that.
you."
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably bring up that and explain how I think I'm different
Exactly.
from the average.
So that
applicant.
proves to me that you really know us, and I'm going to want somebody like you who's gone that little extra step to go there. So you would benefit from that. Obviously, you want to point out your strengths. Obviously, leave your weaknesses alone. You want to go through the year and review your academic successes. Also talk about your personal year, your leadership, the things you've done on campus, all those sorts of important things. And boy, there's a double line there. Offer to interview. They probably won't do that, but at least you make the overture. Make an overture, maybe even to come and visit the place. And you want to just come up to the line and don't cross the line of being too aggressive, too pushy, too arrogant. But show that you're honest, sincere, and geez, I do what it takes to get into your place. And then concluded the letter with a big bang, a big exclamation point, something that really they can take with them and remember about you. And time is of the essence. 10 days, 2 weeks at the most. You got to get that turnaround and make that happen. Then you should hear by May 15th, and this is after you've deposited somewhere else, and even June 15th, and even sometimes I've heard later that they'll let you know about those things. So you're off, dealing with the wait list. Good luck with that. A couple of the things we haven't talked about here. The rejection letter, the big rejection letter. Most of us get them at some point or another. Denial. That means you can't go there. Okay, and I want to read something to you that I have in my files here that I think sort of speaks to this. It's called the rejection letter. This was written by a columnist in 1987. He's died, but this letter gets resurrected every year and it's updated. And I think it speaks to a lot of my feelings about this, and I think it's pertinent. The rejections arrive this time of year in thin, cheap envelopes, some with a crummy window for name and address, as if it were a bill, and none with the thick packet you'd hope for. Dear so-and-so, the admissions committee gave full consideration, blah, 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 but I regret to inform you we will be unable to offer you a place in the class of 2012. Lots of applicants, limited number of spaces, blah, blah, blah. Good luck with your undergraduate career. Yours very truly, Assistant Dean Blowhard, Rejection Writer, Old Overshoe University. This is the season of college rejection letters, so it's also the time of rejection. You're in or you're out. Today is the day you learn how life is not like high school. To the ins, you got in where you wanted to go. Congratulations, great, good luck, have a nice life, see you later. The rest of this is for the outs. Okay, you sort of felt it was coming. Your SAT scores weren't the greatest. Your transcript had some holes in it. You wondered what your teacher's recommendations would really say or imply, and you can't help thinking about that essay you finished at 2 o'clock in the morning of the day you absolutely had to mail in your application. Essay which was, well, a little weird. Maybe you could have pulled that C in sociology up to a B-. Maybe you shouldn't have quit soccer to get a job to pay for your gas. Maybe it was that down period during sophomore year when you had mono and didn't talk to your parents for 3 months. I did that while you were vegged out. What difference does it make? It still hurts. It hurts where you feel pain most, inside. It's not like the usual heartache that kids have, the kind that other people can't see, an alcoholic parent, a secret shame, a gaping wound in the family fabric. These are things one can carry to school and mask with a grin, a wisecrack, a scowl, a just don't mess with me today attitude. But everybody knows where you got in and where you didn't get in. Sure, the letters come to the house, but eventually you still got to face your friends and teachers and counselors. Any mail for me is like asking for a knuckle sandwich. Thanks a lot for the king in the teeth. What a bummer. How do you tell the kids at school? That's the hard part. The squeals in the corridor from the kid who got in someplace desirable, the supercilious puss on the sides who got early acceptance, or the girl whose old man has an in at Old Ivy. There's the class doofus who suddenly becomes the first nerd accepted at Princeton, the 125-pound wrestling jock who, surprise, surprise, got into MIT. But what about you? You've heard about special treatment for this category or that category, alumni kids on a legacy ticket, or affirmative action luckouts, or rebounders, or oboe players. Maybe they were trying to fill certain spots. But you're not a slot. You're you. They can look at your grades and weigh your scores and see how many years you were in French club, but they can't look into your head, into your heart. They can't check out the guts department. This is the important thing. They didn't reject you. They rejected your resume. They gave some other kid the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that kid deserved a break. Don't you deserve a break? Sure, you'll get one. Maybe this is the reality check you needed. Maybe the school that does take you will be good. Maybe this is the day you start to grow up. Look at some people who've accomplished a lot and see what they started. Ronald Reagan, Eureka College. Jesse Jackson, they wouldn't let him play quarterback in the Big Ten, so he quit Illinois for North Carolina A&T. Do you know that the recently retired chairman and CEOs of both General Motors and General Electric graduated from UMass? Bob Dole, he went to Washburn University. The former minority leader of the United States Senate, Tom Daschle, went to South Dakota State. Speaker of the House of Representatives, J. Dennis Hastert, went to Northern Illinois University. Dick Armey, former House Majority Leader, took a bachelor's degree from Jamestown College. I don't even know where that is. Winston Churchill, he was so slow a learner that they used to write his mother to come take this boy off our hands. I know what you think. Spare me the sympathy. It still hurts. But let this keep this in perspective. What did Magic Johnson say to the little boy who also tested HIV positive? You've got to have a positive attitude. What happens when you don't keep a positive attitude? Don't ask. This college thing, what happens? You rubbed up against the reality of life big time. Maybe big name institutions. Some they pick, some they don't. You lost. It'll happen again, but let's hope it won't have that type of awful kick. You'll get tossed by a girlfriend or a boyfriend. You won't get the job or the promotion you think you deserve. Some disease may pluck you from life's fast lane and pin you to a bed, a wheelchair, or a coffin. That happens. Bad habits you can change. Bad luck is nothing you can do about. Does it mean you're not a good person? People like you, if not your resume. There's no one else that can be you. Plenty of people think you're special now, or will think that, once they get to know you. because you are. And the admissions department that said no, screw them. You've got a life to lead. What do you think about that advice? That letter?
I think that it leaves students more hopeful, maybe, but I mean, it says that it still hurts when you're
Still
rejected.
hurts. It still hurts. But life hurts, right?
Yeah.
And you got to go on with things, and sometimes you can grow from those sorts of things. So how do we deal with denial? Well, first of all, you can't take it personally. It's not you. It's your resume. It's your application. You got to roll with the punches. I think if you look at these selective schools, most people who are denied could do the work. The places where they took you, they could have taken somebody else, and both of you could do the work. So somebody's got to be expendable here. It's a numbers game. It's part of the baby boom generation that we talked about, and it's hard to do that. You should try to consider this as a blessing. A lot of places recruit to deny, and Washington University is like that. They try to get lots of people so they can reject them, and then their numbers look good. You absolutely cannot appeal except for the UC, so you have to get your arms around this. You've got to accept it. You've got to move on. And I wouldn't even try to find out why. It doesn't matter why. You play the blame game. You try to figure the things out, and it just drives you crazy. I think it's probably good to do something symbolic. In fact, I've been trying to get our seniors to have like a rejection letter burning party. Because everybody gets one. You put on your shirts where you're going to go, and you'll just burn these letters, and you just sort of celebrate together. You decide to go to your second place, work hard, and then maybe you can transfer, maybe you just stay there. So a couple other things to think about. Everybody has a rejection in life. Nobody's getting through it. You have to think, well, this is their loss. It's not your loss. It prepares you for life. You can focus on your strength, focus on the other acceptances, and just believe that everything turns out for the best. Now, should you transfer? Good reason, yeah, hold on to your dream, try to achieve what you want to do. You can eventually get there. Or the other side of the argument, I think, is wherever you go and you start to school, it's like a marriage. And you don't marry somebody and wait to see somebody else to marry them. So if you go to a college, you're married to that college, and be honest and faithful to them. So you've got to decide what's best for you. My rejection, I applied to two graduate schools, and I'm sitting here in California because I was rejected by the one back east. And I thought it was wonderful. I didn't at the time. I thought it was, felt sorry for myself. But I was forced to come east, where I met my wife on the first day of the program. Got married in the school where I'm teaching. I live on the peninsula. I live in Carmel. I have two wonderful kids, simply because of rejection. So I think that's a great thing. Worked out for me. I have a relative, without naming anybody, who was rejected by a bunch of elite medical schools. He eventually got into a medical school, and he came back, and he's now teaching at the medical school that rejected him. So it's a pretty screwy game, isn't it? He's not good enough to go there, but now he's good enough to teach their students. So that tells you about what the game is like. And I think we'll skip this other letter by this other guy. Really good letter, but in the interest of time, I want to move on and get to the core that involves you two guys. So we've talked about acceptance, denial, wait list, appeals, all those sorts of things, getting on with your life. A big option we haven't talked about is, heck, you don't need to go to school next year at all. You guys have made that decision. All right, let's start with you, because you're living your decision. You're here now, right?
Here, yeah.
So what made you make that decision?
I don't know. It was something, because it's not uncommon by any means.
Yeah, we lifted that idea from the Brits, didn't we? You guys have been doing this for years.
Yeah. So I mean, it's something that I always had in mind. It wasn't a last-minute decision. I always knew that I was probably going to take a gap year. It gives you a chance to get some perspective, just to, especially for the sorts of people who love to travel, love to get around, see.
So what are some of the things, other than, like, you've chosen one thing, coming to our school for your year, come to the colonies. What do other of your friends do?
I mean, there are specific gap year companies that you can research, and they will help you organize.
I'm going to talk about those in a bit. Yeah.
I've done everything pretty much independently. Actually, once I leave California after graduation, I'll be going back to London for about 3 days, and then I'm back off traveling again.
Good for you. Where are you going to go?
I'm going to Uganda for 2 months.
Oh, fantastic.
There's actually a school there, pretty much, kind of in the middle of nowhere, that was founded and built by funds raised by my school in London. And every year they send out, a small handful of gap year students to go and help and teach out, and just With anything, really.
What percentage of your peers, your graduating class, would do a gap year?
It's hard to place an exact figure, but
20%? 10, 15?
Possibly about 20 or 30%.
20 or 30%, interesting.
Yeah, about 20%,
Good.
yeah.
Genevieve, how about you? You've known about this for a long time. You planned it.
Yeah,
Why?
Because I studied German at York School before I came to Stevenson for about 3 years. And I went there twice over the summers to study. And I love the atmosphere, I love the culture. I just thought it was so different and so cool. And I wanted to be a part of it for a year, and I didn't want to miss a year of high school. And I know that they have 13 years of high school, so I looked for a program and I found one that would let me do a gap year. And
Well, tell us about it, because I've had another student who did that, I believe, and tell our audience about it.
it's called Congress Bundestag,
Bundestag,
and it's just, I think it's through our government, and you go and you represent America as a student, and you just show them what America's about, and you share your life with them, and they share theirs with yours in reciprocation.
My daughter did that after college. She worked for a little bit, and then she wanted to, try some things. She'd applied. It was a 2-year process to apply to the Rotary in Carmel Valley, and she was picked, and she chose to go to an English-speaking place. She went to Australia, and she got a master's in public health there on the Rotary dime, and hosted by a family over there. And all she had to do was be a good American and represent America like you're representing the UK. And it's a great thing. It's obviously for world peace and understanding. A great deal if you can do it. And that's sort of what it sounds like you're going to do.
Yeah, that's exactly what it
Okay,
is.
well, let's look at the gap year by definition. Well, it's the gap between the high school and the college years. It also can be after the college years. Began in the UK, where lots of good ideas begin, and it's starting to become really popular here. We have probably 4 or 5 kids every year, and growing. Some places it's even more, but it's becoming much more popular. Most colleges love it, and they support it because they get stronger, wiser, smarter kids coming back. At home, with parents, it plays to mixed reviews. Harvard's been a proponent for years and years and years. Bill Fitzsimmons, who's the Dean of Admission, he went on record 30 years ago saying, we love gap year kids. So they want Harvard kids to go off on their own. Then they get these really interesting kids coming back, which makes Harvard even a better place. Princeton's really come on board, and this fall they expect 10% of their incoming freshmen to hold off and do a gap year. I've known one of my students that I interviewed and went off to Princeton, in fact, he was a 15-year-old graduating senior at Stevenson, and he went off to Europe, and we had talked to the admissions at Princeton years ago. It was in the 80s, and it was a pretty amazing thing to do it then, but it's much more common now. The UCs, that's another question. You take your risk when you apply to the UCs, and you want to do a gap year. In fact, Mr. Thompson, one of our teachers, had his daughter do that. She got into San Diego. She went on a gap year, and she applied to San Diego again, and they denied her. So she ended up going to UCSC, and that was fine, but you really can't rely on every school to do it. Most schools, and certainly private schools, will go along with that. Okay, a lot of reasons for the gap year, a lot of positive and negative reasons. Maybe you're not ready for college, maybe you're a little bit younger, a little more socially immature, maybe you just need flat out a break. I think the best positive reason, it's fun, it's adventurous. You're having a great year, aren't you, Michael?
Definitely.
And, and maybe you're just not satisfied with your list of choices. I've had some students with that response. You need to get charged up again. Charge up the batteries, get enthusiastic about school. You need to grow up. You need to get a better application. Get some strengths to it that you maybe didn't have before. You're just getting lots of experience for life. And it's pretty good to learn and live in a different venue. Like Uganda's obviously going to be different than downtown London, for you. And whole lots of things you can do. A conservation corps, inner city work, a year abroad, cultural immersion, building churches, although I think Mexico is pretty much wall-to-wall churches these days, according to all the kids that have built them. You can work for Habitat for Humanity in this country, teaching, you do a little teaching shtick, archaeology if you're lucky. Some kids have worked with their parents' business. You can work as a sort of a clerk or shadow person in law or even medicine, work with human rights, lots and lots of things you can do here. Just flat out touring, a sense of adventure, language immersion, community service, internships, lots and lots of things. There are lots of experiential programs. I'm going to show you some of these commercial outfits here in a minute. And the military is a big one. In fact, I was talking to one of our students today who's from Singapore. He doesn't have any choice. He's doing a gap year. They've got 2 years of mandatory military, he has no choice about. And the thing they have to think about is whether they're going to apply to college now or do it later. At any rate, they're going to be better applicants next year because they'll be, or in 2 years, because they'll have that military experience. And they may be officers, they're grown up, they're men, they're, or women, they live a real life.
I've certainly heard from people who've been at their first year of university that they can usually tell the difference between someone who's come straight from school and someone who's taken a gap year and had some real life experience.
Oh, yeah. And it's what? More mature, more responsible, more confident, sure of themselves.
Just, been around a bit,
Yeah, and you're going to be different having spent the 5 months with us.
Sure.
Probably go back to acting like an American.
Apparently.
Okay, so educational programs, peace studies, environmental work, lots of interesting things you can do. Employment, a job, although they don't look quite as well on that. Just a nice retreat, study abroad, travel, tons of things. Okay, some opportunities. These are some outfits, some organizations that I just Googled and I came up with all these, and you can take a look at these yourself. This one's called Where There Be Dragons, and I'm going to read this to you. I don't know if you can quite read that, but it's the Dragons programs are authentic, rugged, and profound learning adventures that expose the beautiful and complex realities of the countries in which we travel. They're featuring extended itineraries. Dragons programs encourage deep immersion into strikingly different physical and cultural landscapes, combining the best in experiential education, travel, service learning, and physically and intellectually challenging experiences. While programs vary in their focus, with some trekking and wilderness intensive, others are strong on service and developmental studies, and still others are language oriented. All Dragons journeys are designed above all else to be fun, safe, and honest educational experience. That's pretty good marketing. Now, why do they pick Dragons? I saw this down there below, and I thought that was interesting. And this sort of encapsulates the whole gap year program. On ancient maps, dragons were drawn to symbolize the unknown, and to travel beyond the familiar world was to go where there be dragons. There are people who live there, their lives for adventure, exploration, and knowledge. People who are willing to venture into the unknown for the sake of discovery. For those people, we offer incredible experiences. We hope that you are one of them. Where do you want to go? Obviously a good marketing ploy. So did you see this as coming to see where the dragons are when you came over here?
In a way, yes. I mean, I'd never been to the States before coming here.
So are Americans dragons? Are we dragons over here?
I suppose in some ways.
Yeah.
It was, for me, it was just a great opportunity to experience a slightly different culture.
Yeah.
And one of the great objectives was the scholarship side of things. A lot of gap year students, the stereotype of a gap year is to work for maybe half the year to fund the other half of the year, which would be traveling.
Those are good ones.
And that's obviously very good experience, but when I found out about this English Speaking Union scholarship.
Pretty cheap for you. Spent about $3,000 American dollars for this year?
Well, the tuition fees is all funded through the English Speaking Union.
Oh, so they pick up your cost?
Yeah, that's
like when our students go over to England, it costs them about $3,000. I tried to get my students, my son and daughter to do it, and it would have been about $3,000 for the year.
Is that the
That's
opposite?
the whole year program, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and yours a little bit less. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, do you have to pay for yours?
No, it's free. They even pay for the plane ticket
Oh my
to
goodness.
Germany.
Oh,
Yeah,
geez.
it's incredible.
Don't throw me into the briar patch. Fun for a year, interesting people. Plus, you're gonna kill German when you're done. You're doing it all in German, right?
Yeah, it's completely immersion. You live with a family. They only speak German to you. You go to Washington, D.C. for a month before you go to Germany and just have a course, quick course in learning German.
Good. Well, let's go back and look at some of these groups. There's a cottage industry that's grown up to serve all this. There's a group back east called Time Out Associates. There's another group called Dynami, and you can Google all of these. The Center for Interim Programs, and they cover all of these things, soup to nuts. And they're commercial outfits. They make money on this. Gapyear.com, great ideas, great deals. AmeriCorps, now this is more idealistic. This is for national and community service. It's like Peace Corps, except we're doing it here in the United States to help our cities and poor people. iGapYear.com is another one. Of course, you see all these wonderful people with smiles on their face and their beach, and it's really nice. But I'm sure there's some heartache involved here. This is the one that's basically through Africa Gap Year, and I guess you're going to Uganda here, and you're going to learn some of these things that these people do. Another one's called Bridge Year, and it's basically Spanish study abroad, South America, Chile, Argentina, and so forth. And this is your deal. This is the English-speaking Union of the United States. This is the group we belong to, and we've done this for years. And we've had as many as 6 students in a year go over there. And of course, it's potluck. You don't know where you're going to go, and all you know is you're going to be speaking English.
It's not too difficult.
No, and this is the one my daughter did, Rotary Youth Exchange, and this is the full deal. I mean, she got $25,000 from the Carmel Valley Rotary, and her master's degree was paid for. She had enough money to live in this little cottage over there, and she sort of snuck her boyfriend over. You're not supposed to do that, but it's her fiance, and they got married when they came back. But and the good thing about it, you know, she had enough money to pay for both of them, and then he sort of talked his way into the university over there, and he got a master's degree also, and they gave him like this fellowship. So it was this wonderful serendipitous event for both of them, but it was all due to the Rotary, and the Rotary wants to make the world a better place. Rustic Pathways, a little bit more expensive, but this is a really exotic one. They come every year, and really high-powered program. I like what they have to offer. Another one, Thinking Beyond Borders. This is a very global perspective, international peace. This is a reach out and help your brother program. It's a really legitimate, authentic thing. I have great respect for them and what they do. And they only take about 15 or 16 people. I met the young, in fact, it was a young Harvard football player, but 27, 28 years old, who started and runs it, and really impressive guy, and really got idealistic goals here. This one is au pair. You go and live in France, and maybe you're an au pair for a French family, and a lot of different things to do. This one, what we do, this is city year, okay, and you focus on cities rather than the great outback. This one, which one is this now? There are so many different ones here. This one looks like one of these, you know, just standard ones here. Lots of jobs, sailing, surfing. Another one in exotic places, Costa Rica, Kenya, Mexico. And then this is the one if you're an outdoorsy person, wilderness, if you like our Cole Thompson, and those teachers do those things. National Outdoor Leadership School, they have those on the East Coast, they've got them in Colorado, Outward Bound, ropes courses, things like that. You can learn to do sailing, all this discovery, all this wilderness stuff, and it's very concentrated, and I guess you probably have to be in a little bit better shape, you know, for these things. This one's Audubon Expedition Institute. I'm sure that's in keeping with the Audubon Society and animals and birds. Mr. Tintle would probably like that group. And then this one, I indulged my love of wilderness and my adventurous spirit. That sounds pretty good. The Environmental Conservation Internship. So you can see the guy there with the GPS locator, and you know, he's in the outdoors. Everything's perfect there. You know, who would want to do that? One of our former teachers does this one. It's called Semester at Sea. And you get on a sailing ship up in San Francisco, and they sail down to South America and around the point, and you spend your whole school year on one of these big three-master ships, and that can be certainly an adventure. This is another example of the Rotary Youth Exchange Program. Lots of books, and I put cut and pasted a couple here. Before You Go, the Gap Year book, the Gap Year guidebook, Taking Time Off, First Time Around the World. Everybody's happy, they're jumping around, they're safe, they're well outfitted. A couple things you have to keep in mind, though, just before you leap into this. Know whether they're selective or not. Like, you have to write a check or you have to try out. And you guys had to apply and go through some hoops, right? Everybody's not accepted to your program.
No, it's a small number.
Yeah, same. I had to write a statement, and then there was an interview process.
Yeah, so everybody doesn't get to do it. It's sort of like getting into college.
It's exactly like, I mean, you have to send in your transcript, you have to write what your activities are, you have to interview, and there's loopholes. I mean, you get through the first round, and then there's a second round, and then there's a third round.
Right. And the other thing is, you got to think about the money. Some cost zero, and that's what you guys have come up with, zero. Some cost up to $35,000, $40,000. That's pretty significant. My daughter lucked out. In fact, not only just didn't cost her anything, she got money to pay for it all. Of course, then my wife and I visited her over there, so it was a nice thing for us. And I'm sure your parents are going to maybe come and see you or not.
I doubt it.
Are they allowed to do that? Like, are your parents allowed to come?
I don't think so.
I don't see why not. I'm sure they'd.
Yeah, like our students in the past who've gone on the ESU program over to the UK, they dissuade parents from coming over. They also don't let them come back either.
I think it's a more authentic experience if you're,
if you're by yourself.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, you want to do that. So think about the cost. Also think about whether this is going to be a big self-centered thing for you. I'm going to enlarge my world, or you're going to give. You know, you can be a taker, you can be a giver. And I think, you know, in many cases you're going to do both. I mean, you're going to give what it means to be an American. You're going to give up some things, but you're going to take in lots of stuff as well. So you can't be totally idealistic because you're a kid still. And also, you got to think, is this intramural or extramural? Am I doing this within my scope of things, or am I going to get outside of my comfort zone? Am I going to do it outside the parameters? I don't, I can't get a feel for yours, like which one is riskier. Yours is sort of more risky because you're gone for a year and you're only 5 months, but...
You can, I mean, it's available to do for a much longer period of time as well.
Yeah. But you can tell us when you get back.
I'll tell you. I'll keep you updated.
And then there's the time thing too. Is it 6 weeks long or is it a year long? 6 weeks almost doesn't even count. That's sort of like a long vacation. Whereas a year, you're really committed, like the pig at the barbecue. Okay, let me give you a real successful example. One of my students a few years ago, she was a senior at Stevenson. She had some financial aid concerns. She was unsatisfied with her list of schools, and she got a job as a nanny in Europe. A really great thing, and it was a really great experience. She wrote a new application, wrote the essay, she reapplied, and she got in lots of good places. And I think, in fact, she ended up going to Vanderbilt, which is a really great place. So the ending of that story is a great one. Okay, let me read this last thing, and then we'll conclude with some of your final thoughts of the gap year. The decision to take the gap year was filled with uncertainty, doubt, and risk, but it turned out to be the best decision I have ever made. I have matured and my confidence level has gone through the roof. I have learned the value of hard work and patience. I broke out of my safety bubble and experienced a major international city. Getting my acceptance letters this time around was incredibly gratifying, and I can't wait to start college in the fall. Okay, I want you to write your paragraph and tell us what it's going to say, and then you think about yours. What do you think it's going to be like? What would you say like that?
I would say that it's not necessarily for everyone, but if you're the sort of person who has a lot to gain from having that kind of experience, then I would definitely recommend it.
Okay.
I've been enjoying myself so much, and especially if it gives you the opportunity to reapply or get some perspective on your thoughts on university or what you want to study, that kind of thing.
Good. I envy you. What would you say? What do you think you're going to say?
I honestly think everyone should do it.
Me too.
I think that everyone can mature from having some time away from their families. Everyone needs to individuate a little bit more, and by doing that through a program that sends you abroad, you really have the opportunity to get to know yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, and that you'll appreciate your experience in college a lot more, having had time away from the educational situation that we've had for the last 12 years of our lives.
Good advice, good perspective. Okay, my last thought is on this last slide here. Take the risk. Jump out, take the risk, jump into the water, do some good things. Okay, we've talked today about something a little bit different. We're off the beaten path here. We're back with the seniors. We've talked about what to do with our decision right now. We've been denied, we've been accepted, we've been waitlisted, we've been deferred, and then we have another choice. We've got a gap year. We can do something totally different. Remember, we're always in charge of our lives. We're always in control. We can get to where we want to get. We might have to go a little circuitous route, but we can get there. All right, and in doing so, we become a better, stronger person. We want to thank today Michael and Genevieve for being with us, and we envy them and their adventures. We also want to thank the students and the parents who've joined us today, and we'd like to invite you to our next session 2 weeks from now. We're going to talk about actually another conversation. We're going to have some parents and some students here, and we're going to loosely talk about if I knew then what I know now. We're going to get some advice from the experts, the parents and the kids who've gone through it all. So it's going to be a little different format, not as much PowerPoint. So I'd like to both invite you and thank you for being here, and want to finish with my mantra here. Remember, it's never too late to start thinking, or never too early to start thinking about college, and it's never too late to start working on achieving your dreams. This is Dave Miller, Director of College Counseling at Stevenson School, wishing you good luck in finding the right place for you, and I look forward to seeing you next time.